Hello and welcome back to Joe's World of Finance. Today we're talking about Tesla's battery production. So currently Tesla makes half the world's batteries, and they have said that they want to go from their 35 gigawatt hours that they produce right now up to above 1 terawatt, close to 2 terawatts. And so today we're talking about how is that possible?
Look now at the universe.
So first of all, let's talk about why the batteries matter so much. So when it comes to the business model of the manufacturing side of Tesla's business, they're fairly unique when it comes to Western automotive manufacturers. Traditional manufacturers of internal combustion engine vehicles such as Ford and GM and Volvo, etc., they are actually commoditized agglomerates. So they buy all of their parts from specialists who, they build the best transmission or the best alternator, and then they just specialize in building the best internal combustion engine because that is where the profit margin is. So they're buying the rest of these parts and putting them together, whereas Tesla's gone a fairly unique route because they have vertically integrated every single part of the vehicle production, including the assembly of the cells. So Tesla does not make the fundamental cells themselves. They're actually a commoditized cell. They're actually manufactured by Panasonic, and anybody can do this. But what they do have is a bunch of patent-protected ways of assembling those cells into a lattice to become a large battery pack that can be used for a vehicle, right? Because the cells they're using are not too different from the traditional lithium-ion cells you could buy in the supermarket. But they just use a lot of them, and they layer them up into this large pack that can power a whole vehicle. And this was actually one of the big breakthroughs that J.B. Straubel, the ex-CTO of Tesla, made over the last 15 years. So Tesla's had a huge advantage when it came to manufacturing these high efficiency, low cost density battery packs. No one else is able to do this, so they're all buying from other people. Now, Panasonic makes these cells in a joint venture with Tesla at the Gigafactory 1. So this is not as though they just buy them in bulk from Panasonic. They are facilitating that. When Tesla began this process, there was only 30 or so gigawatt hours of storage created every year globally, and that was used for things like laptops and mobile phones. These lithium-ion batteries were very small. So they really revolutionized that whole arena and have doubled the world's production, right? Because they make half of all of the lithium-ion batteries produced by the world are produced by Tesla in that Gigafactory 1 in a partnership with Panasonic. So where are they going in the future? Why does this matter so much? So like I've said, they've taken this unique approach to vertically integrate. That gives them an edge. When it comes to the availability of these battery packs, they are able to control the supply. Now they obviously have upstream bottlenecks, things like cobalt. I mean, lithium is the 9th or 10th most abundant element on the planet, but they have joked about getting into mining in one of their investor calls. So, they are trying to remove cobalt, and I think they'll announce that in the Battery Powertrain Investor Day in February. They want to remove cobalt because that itself is a huge bottleneck. Cobalt comes from conflict areas where they use child mining and a bunch of other incredibly contentious business models. So I think it would be really great if Tesla, and I think they are, going to get off of using cobalt in their battery chemistry. So before we go on, let's jump into the Q2 2019 earnings investor meeting, the investor call, where Elon talks about their goals with their battery production.
If we're like at 28 gigawatt hours right now, there's more than that when you count the factories in Japan. So like a little over 30, so 35 or something like that. Then how do we get to like 2 terawatt hours a year? Which is so 2 order of magnitude increase.
That's the way you have to think about it, because that's what we need to do.
Yeah, exactly. In order to really make a fundamental shift in the world's energy usage and really transform things to a sustainable energy future, if you're not in the terawatt hour range, it's a nice news story, but it's not fundamentally changing the energy equation.
Cool. So as we can see, Tesla has their eye on the prize here. They have large goals. If they're already producing half the world's batteries now, if we assume the worst case that nobody else scales up battery production over the next few years and Tesla is the only one to scale up, we're talking about a 30 times growth from their current position, where they're making 30 to 35 gigawatt hours, to get to 1 terawatt. Now he's spoken about getting to 2 terawatts there, which would be a 60 times improvement. Now, if they're at 50-50 right now, that would push them up above 90% of the world's lithium-ion battery production. That's quite something. So here's where we're going to start getting into some of my theories. They're just in terms of what they've done, how that splits up. Out of that 35 gigawatt hours, we've got 30 gigawatt hours of that going to the 360,000 vehicles that they're going to sell this year. That's at an 80 to 100 kilowatt hour battery pack size, which is, when you have a P100D, that's a performance 100 kilowatt hour battery with dual motors. That's what that breakdown is. So that's 30 gigawatt hours right there, and then they're doing about a gigawatt hour a year of storage. Now that's going to ramp up exponentially because they have not been focusing on that business so far, but they're going to now that the car segment is in good health. So just a quote here, Tesla nearly tripled its energy storage deployments to 1.04 gigawatt hours in 2018 compared to the 358 megawatt hours, so megawatt hours deployed in 2017. So they tripled it up to over 1 gigawatt. Now that was after, in the start of 2018, Elon saying, I think that we can do 1 gigawatt hour of installations this year, and that every year in all of human history before that added up to 1 gigawatt hour, and then they're doing 1 gigawatt hour in one single year, just Tesla alone. So that's all of human history in storage. They're going to double that up. That is just absolutely absurd, and they came through on that. Like I said, they did 1.04 gigawatt hours. So he came through on that promise. People only, all you hear about are the promises he makes he doesn't hit, right? And he's a quarter or two behind on them. But the ones that he does hit are still groundbreaking, absolutely revolutionary. So they've already done 1.1 gigawatt hours of storage when I added up the first 3 quarters of this year. So, I'm making this video towards the end of Q4 2019, and we're days away from, well, maybe a couple of weeks away from getting those numbers. And, they went from 250 to like 450-ish megawatt hours per quarter installed. So if they do another 450, we would be looking at 1.5 gigawatt hours, so a 50% improvement over what was the aggregation of all of human history in 1 year, with now 50% increase on that again. So this is that exponential type curve that we're talking about. This is absolutely absurd. All right, so that's where we're at right now. So how is Tesla possibly going to 30 to 60 times their battery segment and their battery production? Because as he said, if they could just produce more, they could do more. The huge bottleneck here is not the demand or the need for this. The unit economics of batteries has been a huge barrier for the adoption of renewable technology, right? Because it's just been too expensive for consumers and mum and dad homeowners to afford a battery Powerwall. It's been too expensive for governments to invest in large-scale batteries. I spoke about the economics of the energy sector and how Tesla's going to disrupt that in a previous video. So make sure you check that out if you want to understand more about that. But we're just talking purely about the battery tech today. What's the business model like? Okay, let's talk future. So I've got 5 different things here, right? We'll fall with a final conclusion. So the first one is once they have this battery and powertrain investor day. So the powertrain, that's that whole skateboard at the bottom with the motors and the gearing and the batteries themselves. So we've got the electric skateboard and then the battery tech itself. They're going to be announcing some kind of revolutionary tech. We have tweets from Elon after the Cybertruck saying no more product launches, but maybe some unexpected technology launches and announcements over the next kind of year. So it all lines up that they have a new battery tech. They've been hyping this up for like a year, this investor day. So it's going to be something. They're not going to just have a huge investor day to announce nothing, right? Or an incremental improvement. So my money is on a glass electrolyte battery. So this is from John Goodenough, who invented the original lithium-ion battery, has just released a paper. He's like 97 years old now. He's released this paper on this next generation lithium-ion. Now, a lot of people talk about breakthroughs in batteries and having the next big thing. You've heard about graphene batteries constantly, solid-state batteries so much. But if the person who originally invented the lithium-ion battery, which is what powers electric vehicles right now, if they say they have something new and this is their life's work, I would be inclined to give them a chance. Now, if you're that person, if you're John Goodenough and you're thinking, who do I want to work with to commercialize this technology? Well, you probably go to the one company that literally doubled the consumption of the technology that you pioneered, right? You go to Tesla, you go to Elon Musk, who really believed in the tech, who brought it to the forefront of the EV market and made it the industry standard. So if you're going to bring some new tech, you go to the company that has the vertically integrated battery assembly and just recently bought back like Maxwell Technology, Highbar Tech. That was Maxwell was a chemical a battery chemistry startup, well, not startup, sorry, battery chemistry startup from the 60s that grew into this behemoth of Silicon Valley, has decades of R&D, and then High Bar Systems was a battery manufacturing company, so that's a lot of evidence there that they're going to vertically integrate the actual cell production itself. So they won't just be making the commoditized cells with Panasonic and latticing them up. Instead, they're going to be producing their own in-house, which gives them better control over the margins, because Panasonic, as you can believe, is trying to squeeze Tesla on the margins, charging them more and more as they get bigger and bigger, and Tesla makes more and more cash. So once they've vertically integrated that, they have this new glass electrolyte battery. Now, the stats on this are insane. So when we talk about, so this, one of my things is, we've got the Battery and Powertrain Investor Day, they're going to announce this new breakthrough. Now, I believe this new breakthrough will be this glass electrolyte battery, and that will allow for a 1,000,000-mile battery. Right, that doesn't mean in one charge, but it means over the lifetime of the battery, cycling, charging up, discharging, it'll be able to do 1,000,000 miles before it fully degrades, right? Because every time you do a charge cycle on a battery, you create micro fractures, which decrease its ability to charge up next time. This is why, your phone battery starts to die sooner and sooner. The same thing is going to happen to a lithium-ion battery in a car. Like I say, it's just a lot of those smaller batteries stacked up together. So the using of the glass electrolyte allows you to pack in that lattice really tight, you get far less micro cracks, and it's able to cycle many more times. So this is actually a huge breakthrough, and the biggest implication for this 1,000,000-mile battery, is that it will actually improve the economics of robo-taxis. Okay, because like I've mentioned before, amortization is a huge part of any kind of manufacturing. If they're building these cars and they can only get 200,000 miles out of them before the battery breaks down, and the battery is the most expensive part of the car, and they need to replace it, that makes them a lot more expensive for every ride in the unit economics than if it can do 1,000,000 miles. So if it can do 5 times as many miles, then the cost per mile is 5 times lower. So instead of being, $1 per mile, it could be 20 cents a mile. It would be even lower than that probably. It'd probably be in the single cents economic level for every mile driven. So you can imagine they could charge 20 cents a mile to the customer and make a 80% profit margin on that. So that is a huge breakthrough when it comes to the economics of robo-taxis. Not to mention that when it comes to building that car, when you buy your car, it lives in your garage most of the time, or you're at work. You probably drive it to and from work, or you occasionally do a trip on the weekend, you go to the beach if you live in somewhere nice that has a beach, but otherwise maybe you do an occasional road trip, you do a camping trip, that's it. So the traditional utilization rate that is calculated is about 5%, maybe 5 to 10% if you're being generous. But if you're talking about a robo-taxi, something that doesn't need someone to actually be awake to drive it, something that you could just go to bed and then let it go out and drive people around, it would charge itself, etc. You're talking about a utilization rate up to closer to 50%. Obviously it needs to drop off a passenger, then go charge itself. It drives, back and forth, and then perhaps you just want to leave it some of the time. But you're talking of something upwards of 50% in utilization rate. So that's going to decrease the number of years that a car can live if it's being driven so much more. So that 1,000,000-mile battery increases the robustness, allows it to live for longer, allows you to get better unit economics on every mile driven. It's a huge breakthrough. And the big thing here is that I don't believe that Tesla has the capacity all the time. So it took them a year to go from breaking ground to producing and delivering the first Model 3s made in China, which is happening, this week. That is groundbreaking already. That is absolutely an enormous achievement to have made. No one else has ever managed to do something like this. Okay, it is absolutely ridiculous that they've managed to achieve this, but it's not enough, right? They can produce a few 100,000 vehicles out of that, which we've shown is only like the order of tens of gigawatts of hours of capacity. They're going to need to 30 to 60 times this. That doesn't mean that they themselves are going to have the capital, the $2 or $3 billion per gigafactory to build the 30 of these factories themselves. So the big hot take here is that we're going to see in 2020, as Elon has alluded to in the past, we've seen him getting pretty chummy with the head of VW, right? And Volvo has said that they would be interested. Fiat Chrysler said they're interested. We've just seen that huge Fiat Chrysler Peugeot merger. They're going to have to start licensing their tech. So what I mean by this is that Tesla will turn the machine that builds the machine, which is their terminology for the Gigafactory, that technology, they will license to VW, which is a large conglomerate, to build their own Gigafactory using the Tesla technology. Now, it won't be this new breakthrough glass electrolyte battery. It'll be the current commoditized traditional lithium-ion lattice cell that they're currently using. So they'll give their current already breakthrough, right? No other car company has has beaten the 2012 Model S on range economics. So they're still like 10 years ahead almost when it comes to battery tech. So even using these ones will be a huge leap forward for the global EV market, which is Tesla's vision. Tesla's mission is to get the mass market to adopt electric vehicles and renewable energy. So this will be a huge step forward. It will drive the adoption of these gigafactories to mass produce these batteries, and Tesla will take home a licensing fee. Now, licensing fee is beautiful, right? Because you're talking about they didn't have to lay out any of the capital to build it. So it's pure profit. 20 to 30% of the production, you're talking about if they can license out 10 of these factories, they could get 300% of the revenue they make now with none of the costs. Pure profit. That is a crazy, crazy play. If you think that the zero emission vehicle, the ZEV credits, are actually a free money play for a Tesla, wait until they have this next generation battery and they're licensing out their gigafactories and battery tech and powertrain tech to these other car companies. We haven't even touched on them licensing out their autonomy. Right? You can imagine them selling their full self-driving package to them. But when it comes to it, their vertical integration and perfecting of the battery production, and then probably working on this next generation, this is that final piece. That's the cherry on top. So instead of waiting for Tesla to scale up to millions of units, they're just going to license out the tech to build these other brands' electric vehicle segment with unit economics that actually makes sense. While Tesla still leads the way and bridges the peloton, right? Gets the further and further lead. They're already so far ahead, and they're not slowing down. They're speeding up. So this has been my hot take on how Tesla's going to go from their 30 to 35 gigawatt hour production now to the 2 terawatt hour production that they're talking about. They will soak up a good amount of it. I could see them scaling up their in-house production to close to a terawatt, but perhaps that other terawatt comes from licensing deals with powered by Tesla. The same as your laptop is powered by Intel. They become that infrastructure layer for the entire EV segment. And even if it drops their market share because more entrants get into play, it's not going to matter because it's a smaller percentage, but of a much larger pie. And so the rate of growth there is going to be obscene, and we're going to have Tesla right in the linchpin of it all. So hopefully this gets you as excited as it gets me. This is a very exciting opportunity for Tesla. I can't wait for the battery and powertrain investor day in February. I've been looking forward to it for months. It's a very exciting time for Tesla. None of this has been investment advice. I personally am a shareholder of Tesla, and I believe in its future, and I will continue to dollar cost average even at these prices, because I think it's going to look incredibly cheap when it's in the thousands of dollars a share. So thanks for watching. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you smash the like for the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe and hit the notification bell to get more of my hot takes. I'm not going to slow down. I have so many ideas about the future of Tesla. I've been studying this company for years. I've been investing in this company for years. I'm a big believer in its vision and where we're going. My background's in electrical engineering. Absolutely love where this company is going. And thanks for watching. Peace out.